So you create a framer and you're like, it would be pretty cool building sites without writing any code and just by drawing rectangles. And you kind of want to get started with it. Now, in this video, I'm going to help you with that. It's going to be a super short video that just teaches you all the fundamentals you need so that you can just, start building your first site in just a couple of minutes. My name is Andy, this is Framer University, and let's get started. So before we jump in, I want to make sure to tell you that you're going to find a remix link down in the description, so you can remix the completed project, and yeah, you can just take a look at it if you got stuck somewhere in the video and you can see how it's built. Well, let me open Framer, and what you see right here is basically what you're going to see when you start a new project. So we just have a simple breakpoint. Let me just take a quick peek at the overview for this video. We're gonna take a look into breakpoints, responsive sizing, interactions, and optimization. So let's start with breakpoints. As you can see, first of all, we have this huge canvas and we have a breakpoint in the center of it. So this is going to be our desktop breakpoint, but we usually want to add a tablet and a phone breakpoint as well, so that we can later preview our sites on mobile and tablet devices as well, and we can optimize it later on. Before we dive any deeper, let's just take a look at the left panel. This is where we find our pages, which is just the home for now. We can also see our layers here and the assets, but more about that a little bit later. We have a top bar for accessing some of the tools that we have inside of Framer. And then if we select any element, let's say this little text layer, you're going to see on the right panel, we'll see all the properties that this text layer has. So if we select this stack, for example, we're going to see the size of the stack and all the different settings that we have for that specific element. And now that we know these, let's actually start building something so that we can learn. I highly recommend now starting a new project and actually following along with me, because yeah, that's how you're going to learn. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically create something like this. I just found this website, Emily Not Found, and I think it's pretty cool and it's very simple and we can practice with this. So let's create a little hero section that has just a simple text here on the right and some fun elements. So first of all, when we have a website inside of Framer and we try putting, for example, a text, if we click here text, we click here Emily Not Found, you'll see that first of all the text is not visible because we have to set it to white color on the right panel. And you can see now that by default we can put this text layer anywhere. So if I want to make this a little bit larger on the right panel and put it here, I can do that, and we're going to get something similar to what we have here. However, if we preview our website with this little button and we start resizing its width to see how it would behave on different devices, we can already see that this is not really gonna be great of a responsiveness. And this is because by default all elements in Framer are positioned absolutely, so you can see its position is absolute. And when we're building responsive websites, we want to use a relative instead. But in order to use relative positioning, we have to set the parent frame into a stack. So let me show you how it's done. As you can see, again, relative is not available, but if I set the parent frame, which is the desktop breakpoint, to a stack by pressing this little layout button, you can see the text already jumped into its relative position, and now it's right here on the top, but I can no longer position it anywhere. As you can see, it jumps back into its relative position. However, now it is basically being positioned according to its parent's stack settings, which is right here. So if I start messing around with these, I start positioning this text to all sorts of different positions. At this point and at multiple points of this video, I highly recommend you to actually go and try it out, play around with the properties to see how these settings really work. So now that we know this, we can actually go back and see how it's positioned. We can see that it is on the right side. And when we start building websites, we kind of have to think in boxes. So, this hero section will be a box, and within that, we're going to have another box here on the right, and maybe we're going to also have one on the left. And within that box, we're going to have the text. So we have to start building that box structure. So all we have to do is we have to just right click Emily, and then we are going to add a stack. What is a stack? Well, a stack is what we've done before. We turned this desktop breakpoint into a stack. It's basically just a frame that has these layout options. And so now this Emily not found text is wrapped within this parent frame, which is called stack, but I can rename this to hero. So this will be the box for the hero section. And what I can do is I can just set its height to viewport 100 VH, meaning it will always take up 100% of the given viewport, but I can set this value to a little bit lower, maybe, I don't know, 40 or 70 or 60, because as you can see here, it's a little bit smaller. So back here, all I have to do is now I have to make sure that this is actually on the top of the website, which is at the moment it's not. So I have to select the desktop breakpoint, set the direction to vertical and the distribute to start. These are the settings that will allow us to have sections right below each other. So that is perfect. We have the hero here, and I just have to position this to the right side. So I'm going to wrap it in another stack, right click, add stack. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click and duplicate this. And then the parent frame, the hero, will be set to horizontal direction. So we have one on the right and one on the left. And we can just remove the text from the left one. And so now we only have this on the right side. You might have noticed that while we were wrapping these elements into stacks, the width of these elements were ultimately set to width fill, which is really great for responsiveness because it automatically adapts to different changes. However, this Emily not found is set to width fit, which is not great. So I'm going to set that to fill as well, so it will always fill its parent width. Really important, these options like fill or fit is only available when we have it within a stack. So now I'm going to just play around with the text properties on the right. And as you can see, we have something close to the original. But if we preview this, you can see that it will start breaking into new lines in a really weird way. That is not really nice. So to fix this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the text, and instead of the pixel value, I'm going to use fit, which basically means it will fit the parent frame, which is this stack on the right. So now you're going to see that it will always adopt the text size to fit that parent frame, which is exactly what we need in this case. However, I don't want to touch the right edge of the website, so I'm going to select this right stack that is located here. And I'm going to use these layout options to add a little bit of space, so-called padding, on the right. So as you can see, it will immediately look much better here. Maybe 56 pixels, and that looks really good. We might also notice another problem when viewing this on a really large device, which is that the Emily starts cropping at the top. This happens because the text gets really large, and it's within an element, which is the hero, that is actually set to height viewport. And so if we set this to fit content, it will always make sure to fit the elements within the size of the text in this case. So now all I need to do is set a little bit of top and bottom padding to add some breathing room. And now it's going to look great on all devices. Perfect. Now you might be asking, how do I add this 404 little tag right here? Because if we add a frame here, if you just click, the frame tool on the top, or just press down F on our keyboard, draw here, we can create this little frame, but I cannot really position it here. Like, it always jumps into its relative position, as we discussed it already. Now, this is where we can actually use absolute positioning instead of relative. And now we can position this right here. But what we also notice is that as I put it here, it's now hidden, like it's cropping. It's because it's placed within this right frame. You can see it here on the left layers panel. I have to set its parent to visible overflow on the right panel, making the overflowing parts visible. So now I can just resize this, set a blue color, and fully round its corners, and perhaps add a little bit of text within. There you go. We have the 404 here, and it's perfectly positioned where it should be. The thanks to absolute positioning. If we take a look at responsiveness, everything looks all good. And so now if we take a look at the original site, as you can see, the next thing is a large image. So how do we create that? Well, we just press down F on our keyboard, drew a frame, and as you can see, now it's automatically being placed right below the hero. So this is going to be a new section here called image section. I can set the width to fill here, and I can set a larger size. And once I have this frame, I can just go to the right panel to the fill color, select image instead, and just paste the image here. Pretty good. However, if I start making this larger, as you can see, the website itself is not growing. So I have to set the desktop to fit height, so it always fits the height of the sections that we have within. So if this is a little larger, as you can see, the website grows nicely. So I think this height looks great. However, if we preview this, we're going to see that on certain devices, it might start cropping, which is not great because I'm no longer seeing these men on the left and right. Now the way we're going to fix that is we're going to lock this aspect ratio. So I'm going to select this right here, and on the right I'm going to click this little lock. So now if we preview, you're going to see that it is nicely locked onto that aspect ratio. If you think about these elements here, we can say that these are also placed absolutely, but I'm not going to add them because I don't have those images, but they would also just be little frames with image fields that we put here, for example, and we just set the parent frame to overflow visible to make sure it's not clipping. And there you go, you have a little element right here. Now let's wrap up this example website by building this section as well, which has text on the left and then a little bit more text on the right. So we're just gonna maybe duplicate this section that we had for the hero, because that just allows us to work a little faster. We're gonna remove the elements that we no longer need, like this 404 tag, and we're gonna restructure it a little bit. We're gonna move this to the other side. Perfect. So now it's no longer the right frame, but it's the left, and the left one is actually the right. Here it's gonna be a little bit smaller, and also we're no longer gonna have only the right padding, but also left. What we have here is end of an era, so end of an era, and then we can potentially make this smaller by increasing the right padding right here. Or what's even better is we keep the padding the same, 56, and then we set a responsive sizing option here. Because if we set it to 400, then on smaller devices that will not really be great. As you can see, it's super small. So instead what I would do is I would keep the padding 56 on the right, and then I would set the width of the text to a relative value, like, I don't know, 60 or 70%. And then to make sure that it's still on the left side, I will select its parent and set alignment to the left. And yeah, it looks great. However, I can see that it's slightly cropping here, so I'll just select its parent again, the left, and set overflow to visible. We've done this a few times, so it's not that hard. But you can see it's actually all good. Overflow is visible. So the problem is probably the text layer itself. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to increase the line height. And as you can see, that fixes it perfectly. Okay, so we have the text on the left. All we have to do now is put text on the right as well. We already have the right frame set up right here. We just have to make it a little bit larger. And then, as you can see, as I'm making it larger, the position of this element is messed up. And again, here is why you have to play around with the layout settings, because if you play around with it enough, you're going to know that you just have to go to the right panel of the parent frame and set alignment to the top. And that's basically it. Now everything is good, and all I have to do is just copy this text, put it within this right frame. I just pressed Command and C here, and then I'm going to press Command and V here. Set the width back to fill. I'm going to no longer use this fit sizing option for the text. Instead of that, I'm going to just simply use size 20 maybe. But actually what I can see here is that the size is a little larger and the font is different. So I'm going to use maybe 24, and I'm going to use Geist instead of the font that I was currently using. So now I'm going to just write all the text that we have here inside of this box. As you can see, I have this written here, and all I have to do now is just tweak the properties. So I'm going to make it even larger, maybe 36. I'm going to increase the line height so it looks a little bit better, and maybe it's going to be medium. Then its parent frame will be fit, so it always fits the text within. Then to make sure it's not running to the edges, I'm going to set a right padding here, 56 on the parent again. Maybe I will remove this padding here because that will allow me to have a little more space for the text here on the right. So yeah, something like this could work pretty well. But if we switch back here, we see a huge difference, which is that we have these little inner items here pasted into the text. So how can we do something like this? How can we put elements within text? Well, for this, we have to use a Framer University resource. So if you don't know it already, Framer University is a great website for free Framer resources that you can use on your Framer sites. So you just have to go to framer.university/resources and search for the text wrap component. And if you copy this to your clipboard, you can paste it within Framer. And basically we're going to use this component instead of the text layer. So I'm going to press Command and V. It's going to be pasted in. There you go. And we're going to just copy this text over to the component. We're going to make sure that we have all the properties that we had on the previous one. There you go. It's all set up. And now with this component, what we can do is we can define these slots in the text. So you can see if we select the component on the right panel, we have the slot property, which is these two brackets. And you can see that we have these slots in the text as well. So after we have this here as well and here as well. So now all I have to do is just design these and connect it to the component. So I'll just draw a frame right here just to get the size, maybe 40 pixels for the height. And then I'm going to turn it into a stack with this layout button, and I'm going to put text within. I'm going to write 3.5 years. I'm going to set it to a mono font, so just mono, and I'm going to set its parent to fit width. Then I'm going to make the text a little bit smaller, maybe 20. We're going to copy the color, set it on the wrapper frame. The text itself is going to be black, and I just noticed that it's all uppercase. Then to put some space on the left and right, we use padding. We already know that very well, and that's basically it. Now we just position this out to the side. We're not putting this within the breakpoint, and then we just connect. And as you can see, it will show up right here. Now we can just play with the positioning, like align to the middle or to the baseline. But if we're still not satisfied with the spacing, we can always wrap this in an additional stack and apply padding there. But for now, this is going to be good. So we have this 3.5 years, 1 million CMS items, and because obviously, so I'm going to design them as well. So just select this, hold Option, drag, right, make the corners fully rounded, change the color and on the text as well, and then simply connect it to this component, and there you go, it's right there. And I'm connecting the last one as well, which is going to be positioned here at the last slot. And you know, we could go on and build the rest of the website with these techniques, but I think with this, we kind of learned how to, build a website, and we learned all the basic fundamentals. One last thing that we need is to learn about interactions and optimization. So first of all, interactions. How do we make like buttons that are interactive, for example? So what if I want to click this? Like what if I want to make this a little button so I can click these little items? Well, it's really easy. You just have to turn elements into components. So for example, this can be right-clicked, create component. I'm going to call this button. And this is the component canvas here, where we can design the hover state of the button and create interactions, for example. So I can click here, hover, And I can maybe change the color, so it's gonna be a little bit different when I hover over this. Maybe make it a little bit, I don't know, brighter, I guess. Or actually we can also make the corners rounded. And so if we preview this, we're gonna see that if we hover, the color will change and the corners will be rounded as well. So here's a little interaction. And in order to make this a button so it's clickable, we can just add a link on the right. So you can just type in Framer.university or whatever, and it's gonna take you there once it's clicked. So there you go. You have a little button. So yeah, and now as you can see, we have to reconnect it because we turned it into a component. So I'm gonna do that. But now as you can see, it's at the end, so I'll just have to reorder these. And now it's gonna be good at the start. And so yeah, we just created this little button that's within the text and it looks absolutely amazing. But what about responsiveness? Because if we start adjusting this, it's not really gonna look cool on mobile, I guess. So let me show you the easy way to do this. First of all, we have to make sure that everything is set up perfectly on the desktop. So you used relative positioning, stacks, and everything that we learned. And if you do that, then on the phone, it's going to be super easy to optimize. You just select, for example, this section here, and you set the direction to vertical instead of horizontal. So these elements will be right below each other instead of being right next to each other. So now we just add some more tweaks here. So maybe left and right padding on this section. Then maybe I set the left padding on this to a little bit lower value. And maybe the gap here will be a little bit larger. Also, I could make this text a little bit smaller here, but maybe I'm not gonna mess around with that because that would also require me to redesign these elements here, which I don't really wanna spend time with right now. But you get the point. You just come here to the phone breakpoint and make simple overrides to the elements. For example, here as well, we could just, remove the left frame here so it's not taking up space. So this whole thing has a bunch of space for itself, and we can just add left padding on its parent. And there you go. There you have it. You can also reposition this right here. Maybe make it a little bit smaller by applying transform scale to it and just scaling down a little bit. And basically that's it. We have created a website with the fundamental features of Framer that looks great, works great, and is fully responsive. Pretty cool, isn't it? So yeah, basically that's it for this video. I really do hope that you learned something and you were able to get the fundamentals of Framer. Again, I really recommend you to play around with this, play around with properties and to really see how they work and what each one does. Also, remix the project, the completed one, play around with that as well. And yeah, check out Framer.university for free resources that you can use on your projects, and you can learn from them as well. So I think it's pretty cool. So yeah, if you have any questions, make sure to drop it in the comments. And yeah, like this video, subscribe for more, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.